What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Frenzy podcast. Super excited to be here. We got our Week 6 previews tonight, as well as a few other bits we've prepared for you guys. My name is Benjamin Pedalero. I'm your host. I'm joined here, as always, by my very special co-hosts, Robert Armstrong and Tyler Mastro Marino. Boys, Week 6, how we feeling?
We have all the games, it looks like, so we're good. It's questionable at some points this week.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm very excited. It seems like the NFL's working very hard to get these games all in, and Team Zanka remains undefeated.
Yeah, okay. I think, a couple big stories yesterday. Patriots player tested positive, as well as I think there was a Falcons player, which turned out to be a Falcons staff member, so I think that was of a little concern very quickly. So I think as of right now, there are not any games postponed, correct? There was a thought the Patriots game might be, but it seems like that's not the case anymore. Their facility was opened this morning since they canceled practice yesterday, so it seems like that game will be fine to go.
Jags had a player test positive yesterday, but it was a practice squad player, so they shut it down today. But so far, that game's still happening tomorrow.
Yeah, so as of right now, it seems everything is on as scheduled for this week, which is great news, obviously for the whole league, given the amount of cancellations or reschedulings, postponements that we've had over the past couple weeks. Really good sign for the NFL this week, given some positive tests, but it's been fairly under control. So we'll obviously monitor that as we get further into the season, but for right now, it looks like Week 6 is on as normal. We are super excited as well because we can kind of go through our bits as we normally would and not have to, talk about players that might need to be used for backups or what have you. I want to start off this show, as we did last week, talking about our ascenders and descenders for the week. You guys know how this works. We'll do a little round robin, one for each position. We'll change up the order as we go. I will go last, being the host, so Rob, coming off of a studs and duds victory, we will let you go first. Who is going to be your running back ascender for the rest of the season?
So for the rest of the season, I was going to cheat and pick Alexander Madison. I'm not going to do that. That's bias. This was also may look like bias, but I actually don't have him in my other league, and someone else has him. I really want him. Is going to be Myles Gaskin. Obviously coming off a good week. Ben, we actually talked about this in some behind-the-scenes trade talks, but coming off a good week, he's played some tough run defenses. They didn't get Le'Veon Bell, which was my concern before fully submitting him as my ascender for the rest of the year. We'll get to that later, I imagine. But no, Myles Gaskin, I mean, the Dolphins look way better than anyone thought they would be. It's not great, but still, they're running the ball even if they are behind in games. He's getting a ton of touches. Don't really have much behind him. Breda isn't doing a lot. And I think that, he's already had a pretty decent season. I think he's position ranked 16 for running backs. He's also faced some tough defenses, running-wise. Obviously, they've passed the ball pretty well, but some tough run defenses in Buffalo, not Jacksonville as much, but Seattle and San Francisco. And he ran all over San Francisco last week. So with the Jets, and then he gets to play the Jets twice still. It's a couple other bad run defense. I think he's going to just be consistent top 15 for the rest of the year, which is ascending from his current spot at 16.
Yeah, and we've talked about this so many times, like at least weekly on the podcast, how the running back position is so volatile this year and everything. Running backs are so valuable, especially, the top 2 or 3 guys that just have that solid, 20 fantasy point floor every week, like your Zekes, your Kamaras, CMC when he comes back, Dalvin Cook, although he's injured now. Just players like that are so valuable to have. And, through the first couple weeks of the season, I thought these were players that were just never going to be traded. Like, I didn't think there was, you couldn't trade anything for them. And, Rob, you even alluded to this the other day. We were talking about Derrick Henry even. He's one of those guys that his floor is just so high. And he's so valuable to have. Like you even said, there's nothing, no team could trade you for him because it's just not worth trading for any of these guys or trading away any of these guys.
Yeah, what people would have to give up, it just doesn't make sense for them to give up.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make sense for them or for you because the value for these guys is just through the roof, given the volatility at the position. for someone like me, and we'll kind of dive into this later in the show, but obviously Clyde Edwards-Helaire was my first-round pick, and Le'Veon Bell just signed there, who's a mega threat, especially in the passing game, because he's arguably one of the best pass receiving running backs that's ever come through the league. So I think it's the position's constantly changing, and with the volatility, it's just crucial to have a solid running back core. And I think those who didn't overload a running back in the first few rounds are really feeling it this year. And I know we've said that before. I don't want to steal too much thunder from Tyler, though. Obviously, it's your turn, Tyler. Who's going to be your running back ascender for the rest of the season?
I'm going to go with Jonathan Taylor.
Okay.
And look, he has not been the greatest so far. He's still been performing fantasy-wise, but he hasn't been getting as much carries and touches on the ball as I would have hoped so far. He has one game with over 20 rushes, which is fantastic, but for the most part, he's usually just above 10. Last 3 games, he had 13, 17, and then 12. I think that's got to go up for the Colts. I think he's the main guy on that offense that can do anything. They got a great O-line led by Quentin Nelson, and their receivers aren't doing much. So I'm excited for him. He's some guy that I'm trying to trade for. I'm having trouble doing it because I feel like everybody knows he's been performing fine. It's the touches that are the issue, but I like him as an ascender for the rest of the year. He's got some really good matchups coming up too, a good string of them.
So how do you think, obviously Nyheim Hines started off the year really strong, Marlon Mack was in the picture, and then, Mack goes down with the injury. At that point, everyone assumes Jonathan Taylor's taken over, and then Nyheim Hines has a couple big weeks there, and he's kind of faded out since then. So how do you think those two work in sync moving forward? I agree with your assessment, but I just want to, kind of see what your thought around that is.
Yeah, to me, Nyheim Hines is the third down guy, long third down back, and the pass catcher in that backfield. That's what he's been over the past few years, and that's not really Jonathan Taylor's game. Anyways, he's getting like maybe 1 or 2 catches a game, so I don't think that's going to eat into that volume, but Jonathan Taylor is the early down back. The Colts are a good team, and they honestly haven't been good offensively except for 1 game against the Jets, which does that really count?
Yeah,
but
my feelings on the Jets. I'll take my turn now. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I don't think Nyheim Hines is going to be a threat to Jonathan Taylor at all.
Yeah, I would agree with you as well. I just wanted to get your take on that. I'll take my turn now. My guy was not stolen. And this is somebody that, there was definitely uncertainty coming into the season, but he's performed well. I'm going to go Todd Gurley as my running back ascender for the rest of the season. I think, we've seen the Falcons' offense. We know what we get from it. Julio's been in and out of the lineup all year. Sounds like he's going to play this week, which is obviously great. He's one of the, greatest wide receivers ever, and it's obviously better to have him than not. I think that benefits Calvin Ridley owners because Julio will mostly draw coverage, the main coverage, which leaves Calvin Ridley and even Russell Gage open for some more production. Matt Ryan's been not good this season. I think everybody knows that if you've watched any of their games or even looked at the stats. The stats don't necessarily reflect how poorly he's looked, but he's just not the Matt Ryan that we used to. And then obviously that leaves Todd Gurley, who's been rumbling on the ground. I mean, he has 4 touchdowns through the last 3 weeks, got over 100 yards last week. He's seen minimum 14 to 16 carries every game this season. I just think they're starting to find their groove, and Todd Gurley's a big part of this offense. You paired with the fact that Matt Ryan's struggling, I think it's going to be kind of more even operating the offense through Matt Ryan passing and Todd Gurley running. Brian Hill's almost non-existent in this offense, so I think that's why I have Todd Gurley as my ascender for the rest of the season. If you guys don't have any contributions to that thought.
No, I actually like Todd. I was surprised by Todd Gurley this year. His knee looks really good.
Yeah. So, Rob, we'll come back to you for... Actually, no, Tyler. We'll switch up the order. You can go first, Tyler, for your wide receiver ascender for the rest of the season.
You're going to love this one, Ben, because it's Robbie Anderson.
I'm shocked. No.
Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater has been feeding him the ball. He's still a top tier wide receiver in PPR up until this point, and probably standard as well. He's got 55 points in standard, so that's fantastic. I mean, past 2 games, targets 13 and 11. That's insane. I mean, there's not enough good things I can say about the guy. He's breaking 100 yards here and there. He's a long ball guy without some touchdowns, which is kind of unusual. So I think the touchdown should go up. The yards and targets will probably stay within 10, 20 of 100 like throughout the rest of the season. I mean, no matchup issues coming up, really. He's not even considered the number 1 receiver there. I think DJ Moore would be that guy. So he's not going to draw tough coverage most of the times. And a couple more touchdowns, he's going to be fantastic. So he's my ascender.
Yeah, obviously you made that little joke. We've talked about him every week and his big play potential. I definitely decreased my value on DJ Moore just because Robbie Anderson's been so good. And Teddy Bridgewater looks fine, obviously. And then we'll have Christian McCaffrey coming back next week, I think. I thought it was supposed to be this week, but it looks like it's going to be another week, which will only open up things more. Rob, we'll go to you next for your wide receiver ascender for the rest of the season.
So mine is kind of a cheap ascender because he's been injured for so long, but that is going to be Deebo Samuel. Even though the quarterback situation isn't amazing out in San Francisco right now, I mean they went all in on Jimmy G a few years ago, and now they're all out on Jimmy G. Now Nick Mullins is injured, so it's C.J. Beathard, but still that almost helps Deebo because he's more of the short down guy. He's going to be. He only had 3 catches and 2 catches the last 2 weeks, but it's been a rotation of quarterback. I think once they solidify who that starting quarterback is, it's only up for Deebo. He missed the first 3 weeks to injury. Bunch of good defense coming up for him in terms of Seattle up there, and then he has to play the Rams twice, which they've been hit or miss wide receiver wise for defenses. So I think that's a good one. You got Dallas at the end of the season. There's a bunch, and then Seattle twice as well. So that division is just very good for wide receivers. So I think coming off of that injury, getting back into the offense, they've had Brandon Ayuk step out, which draws even more coverage that way. I think there's just so many places, and then you can kind of step into that Emmanuel Sanders role that was let up last year, obviously, with Sanders moving to the Saints. So I think Deebo, even though he's come back from injury a little bit slow, I can see him stepping up and becoming a big part of that offense with that quarterback controversy. Once that just gets solidified, I hope Nick Mullins comes back healthy, because I think that's going to be the best option for Deebo.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick and great analysis because obviously last year, he was really good. He was a really good asset for that offense, and coming off the injury, returning to the lineup, that looks a lot different than it did last year, even with Brandon Ayuk and obviously George Kittle's back. He's taking his usual production, but I think I definitely agree with your pick there. I almost was going to take a cheap pick, but I decided to go another direction. Obviously, I was going to pick Chris Godwin. Coming back from injury, he is obviously going to go back to his top 10 potential every week, especially given Mike Evans is battling injury. Scotty Miller is what he is. O.J. Howard's out, so that leaves Cameron Brate and Gronk, which I feel like I don't need to say much more about that. But the guy I'm going to go with is Marquise Brown. Lamar Jackson's starting to get better than he was in the beginning of the season. Obviously, he had a little nagging injury and never kept him out of a game, but it looks like he's starting to get his Lamar Jackson form back. Marquise Brown, his targets are up the past 2 weeks. Last week he had 6 receptions, 77 yards, and his first touchdown of the season. I think that offense is only going up. Obviously, he has Mark Andrews on the tight end, and then the running back situation, which we've talked about countless times, not as reliable as some other teams. So I think, after a slower start to the season, I think Marquise Brown is somebody that's going to continue to go up for the rest of the season. So obviously, Chris Godwin, but my guy here is going to be Marquise Brown. Now for tight ends, Rob, will go back to you. Who's going to be your tight end riser for the rest of the season?
Tough one again because he's already probably higher ranked as a tight end than most people would have maybe thought coming into the season, as we can see it from our draft. But that's Noah Fant. He does get Drew Lock back healthy this week. They had a huge connection early on in the season. So on as much 5 receptions, 81 yards, and a touchdown the first game of the season, 4 receptions, 57 yards, and a touchdown. The second game of the season, last 2 weeks, has not found the end zone. Still those 5 catches, which is about what you want for a tight end. Tight ends usually outside of your top tier aren't getting more than 5 or 6 catches a game. Just not the way the offenses work in the NFL. So for him to be around that 5 catch mark is good for me, while he's had all these other quarterbacks kind of step in and try to fill the spot that Drew Lock was doing well with. I was high on Drew Lock this season. I thought he was going to come in and do really well after kind of finishing last season strong. So I think getting him back healthy is going to find a lot more targets towards the red zone because they're going to be in the red zone a lot more. They got Philip Lindsay back healthy too, so the running game. I know Melvin Gordon just also went out, so it's kind of 1-for-1 there. But when those 2 running backs are healthy, they're going to be just a more high-powered offense. He's going to get a lot more red zone targets. And really all he's missing to be a top 5 tight end right now is a few more touchdowns because he's already 9th ranked. So I can see with Drew Lock coming back that he's going to be stepping and do really well.
Yeah, so then Tyler, we'll go off to you. Who's going to be your tight end ascender for the rest of the season?
I'm going to go with Jonnu Smith. And he's somebody that I think may have already had his best game, but I still think he's going to be fantastic throughout the rest of the season. He's getting 7 targets a game right now, which is fantastic as far as tight ends go. And the Tennessee Titans look like a well-oiled machine on offense, and I think he's one of the top pass-catching options there. He's a very good pass catcher, and all the play actions that they can run with all those short passes, Ryan Tannehill just absolutely lighting it up right now. Only benefits Jonnu Smith. I know right now he's a top 5 tight end, but I think he's gonna finish that. He's gonna push one of those top 2 guys, and Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. I think he's gonna fall just short of those guys come the end of the year, but still a great option at tight end and someone you should try and trade for, but he's gonna be hard to get.
Yeah, he's going to be really hard to get, and he was kind of my guy coming into the season. I drafted him with excitement, and then I ended up dropping him, which I'm kind of regretting now, but I had so much faith in Hayden Hurst, and that just has not panned out for me. So I definitely agree with you there. My guy, I kind of had the same issue with the tight ends. I had kind of like a cheaper option, and then the guy I'm going to pick, my cheaper option, Zach Ertz, and we kind of talked about this last week because the options, Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson coming back to the offense, plus Sanders is, back fully healthy and obviously playing well, or at least he did last week. I think just stretches the field. I don't need to dig into that again. But my guy here I'm gonna pick is Irv Smith from the Ravens. I kind of just talked about Marquise Brown. I think on the other side of it now, not the Ravens, the Vikings, is Irv Smith. My reason for this is because I think, obviously Adam Thielen's a top 5 wide receiver. I think he's the wide receiver 1 in the league right now. Justin Jefferson's playing well also, and I think that the Kyle Rudolph era in Minnesota is done, and I think Irv Smith's the guy now. He had 4 receptions last week for 64 yards. Kyle Rudolph had 1 reception. So I think just Kirk Cousins is starting to ramp it up, and he's supporting a top 5 wide receiver and then a rookie who's playing well, and I think Irv Smith's the next one to kind of step up in this offense. So he's going to be my pick there. I was looking at Marquise Brown when I said Irv Smith, so that's why I had the confusion. But anyway, we'll go to our descenders now. Rob, we'll start with you. Who's going to be your running back descender for the rest of the season?
A guy that if you had on your team, you drafted pretty highly. But you were now already before this week, you were already afraid to start him, but it's going to get even worse from this week on is Devin Singletary. Buffalo, obviously.
You stole my guy.
Zach Moss coming back this week, healthy. First 2 weeks of the season, the first game of the season, they split the carries dead even with 9-9. Second week, I think it was 10-8, something like that. So clearly they want to split the offense. Zach Moss being a rookie, you want to get him involved. We see this all the time with rookie running backs. You see it in LA with the Rams right now, and then we're going to see it now with Kansas City. Rookie running backs first, the veteran in there. You're going to just split carries, try to get them involved. You want to get the rookies involved while also getting the veterans who are established their targets. Devin Singletary didn't look good at all. Ben and I think have talked about this multiple times in text that Devin Singletary looked bad, even when he was the only running back option in that backfield. The Bills, even when they're up, aren't trusting him because they're throwing the ball still when they're up. They almost lost the game to the Rams because of that. They didn't trust the running back core to waste time and get the first downs that they needed to end the game. So they don't have much faith in Devin Singletary, it appears. doesn't help when you now get a rookie coming back in that's going to split carries. For me, he went from a flex starter still because running backs are so highly valued, especially when they don't have a backup. I'd still was safe starting him. To now, I'm worried about even starting him, which does help me this week because I am playing him against him in fantasy, so that's always nice.
Yeah, I'm Tyler. I'm just going to go here quick because I have the same guy, and I'm not going to try and pull a new one out of nowhere. I had Devin Singletary as well for the same obvious reasons. Obviously, he has not been performing near where he needs to be. I mean, he's averaged well over 10 touches a game this year, and the production just hasn't been there, especially given the way the offense is operating. I think, there's really no excuse for it. I was excited for Zach Moss coming to the season. Obviously, he was quiet in the beginning of the year and then the injury, but, Devin Singletary has 1 touchdown on the year. Just not something you're looking for out of your RB1 for your team, especially, I think it was 2 weeks ago, he had near 20 touches and didn't even break 60 yards. So, I mean, just like you said, Rob, no efficiency. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but he's my guy as well. Obviously, we talked about this via text shortly, is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, obviously, with the Le'Veon Bell signing, terrifying for Clyde owners such as myself.
Don't talk too much about my guy, Ben.
Okay, never mind, Tyler. Tyler, who's going to be your running back descender for the rest of the season?
Mine is going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Thank you for interrupting me. Go ahead, share your thoughts.
Yes. All right. So he's a guy they've just been misutilizing like crazy in Kansas City. He only had 10 rush attempts last game, and he had that earlier this season too, where he only had 10 rush attempts. And both those games, the offense struggled. So maybe they'll see that and correct it. But as of right now, it doesn't look like he's getting it. Those touches increase because Le'Veon Bell is coming to town, and he's not going to help a struggling running back already. He might provide some relief for the rookie. I still think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be the main guy, but Le'Veon Bell is definitely going to be a pass-catching guy and more of a well-rounded guy that they can throw out there whenever. He's a very experienced guy and hopefully can help out Clyde Edwards-Helaire's future out quite a bit, but I think in the meantime, it is going to absolutely kill him. Le'Veon Bell is going to get his touches. Maybe you might not see it at first, the first couple of games that Le'Veon Bell's in while he's still learning the system. So if Clyde has a big game within the next 2-3 weeks where Le'Veon Bell doesn't really touch the ball, I say trade him away because there's no way Casey doesn't find a way to get Le'Veon Bell involved just a little bit, even if it's kind of like a 1A, 1B kind of guy with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell being the B. But yes, not a good situation for Clyde already, and then you add Le'Veon Bell in the mix, so he's my descender.
Okay, so as I said before the show, that'll be a loss of $10 fab for you. No, just kidding. No, I agree. Obviously, I'm the Clyde owner in our league, and it sucks. I think, like you said, and I echoed this earlier, Le'Veon Bell is one of the best pass-catching running backs that's ever come through the league. I think it's going to devastate Clyde in that regard, especially on third down. It's probably going to be Bell every time. I agree that Clyde's still going to be the number one guy, but I think, on a positive note, Bell's going to mentor Clyde and, show him how to be the running back that he can be. I know in our last show, I kind of made the same point that they only rushed him 10 times last week against the worst rushing defense in the league. Now coming to Buffalo this week, which is a slightly stronger defense, I still think Clyde has a good opportunity to go off. I think this is kind of like a statement week for him because Le'Veon Bell can't play this week. He has to do COVID tests over a 6-day span or whatever. So he obviously won't be there this week. You assume they'll get him in some packages for week 7, and then it's kind of unknown for Clyde at that point. I still think he can be a first and second down back, but third down is going to be Bell. Hopefully the goal line touches, they'll look at Clyde sometimes, but he only has 1 rushing touchdown this year. That came week 1. Since then, he's not scored a touchdown. Had the receiving touchdown last week that got called back, of course. So it'll definitely be interesting to monitor that moving forward. That's that. So Tyler, we'll come back to you for your wide receiver descender for the rest of the season.
Ooh, is it cheating to say the Dallas wide receivers? Because I feel like I have to.
I was going to. So
I don't think
it's not cheating. That was going to be my answer, so I'll allow it.
I went a
that-
different direction, but I'll let you, Tyler. You can go ahead and.
Yeah, I feel like I can just talk about them all this one because they're all taking a major hit with that gruesome Dak Prescott injury. And prayers to Dak Prescott. He seems like a very positive guy, and he's already tweeting about how excited he is to come back and all this stuff. So I believe he'll be fine next year when it comes down to that. But as for the wide receivers right now, CeeDee Lamb has been absolutely popping off. That's got to slow down a crazy amount with Andy Dalton. To me, Amari Cooper is still the number one wide receiver on that team. It didn't really look like it last game. It looked like Gallup and CeeDee Lamb were outsnapping him. But Andy Dalton is still a comparable backup QB. He's as good as they come, I think, for backup QBs. And he's not going to fill the role of Dak Prescott because nobody's going to throw for that many yards like Dak was. Just that offensive line is good, though. Their wide receiver core is good. I'm excited to see Andy Dalton keep together a little bit. There's not going to be enough volume for all three of those guys. They're definitely going to start looking Zeke's way more now with Prescott injured, but CeeDee Lamb's target share should go down. Michael Gallup's is going to go down. I can see Amari Cooper's going down. He's the guy that I'm watching the most right now is Amari Cooper, and just to see if Andy Dalton kind of relies on that one guy. And it could easily be that Andy Dalton likes to throw to CeeDee Lamb some more, but he has produced some great years with A.J. Green, so I'm keeping an eye on Amari Cooper. It sucks because he was my ascender last week, and now he's my descender. So I had to flip the page on that, but altogether, those wide receivers are taking a major hit without Dak, so they're my descenders.
Yeah, I think without stealing any copyrights, that's worthy of a come on, man. Rob, obviously you went the same direction. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, or if you had a second guy.
No, I didn't really have a second guy. I'm now scrolling because I want to get some backup plans, but I was just looking through all of them. I don't really see one that stands out as much as the Dallas offense. I will say
I can go.
that I'll just say one thing on the Dallas offense. Andy Dalton's not the worst backup in the league to step in and come, like, especially for an offense that can just throw the ball around and has Zeke. Like, Andy Dalton's not the worst option that's ever stepped in. I mean, we've seen a lot of worse quarterbacks than Andy Dalton play this year. So I wouldn't take it as like they're going to be awful, but Amari Cooper right now is like wide receiver 6, and I don't think he stays, or he's 8 now because he dropped off last week. But I just don't see him staying either. I don't see any Dallas receiver staying in that top 10 receiver with Andy Dalton. That's the only reason I was going to put him as descenders. I don't think they're going to be awful because Andy Dalton still can throw the ball, but I just don't see them staying where they're at, like CeeDee Lamb on this like huge rise, and then Amari Cooper being in the top 10. I just don't see either of those staying. So that's why I was going to pick them.
Yeah, don't drop them by any means necessary. They're still rosterable in close to 100% of leagues, so don't drop them. They might just move down from a wide receiver 1 to a wide receiver 2, and if they're a 2, then they'll move down to like a 3 or a flex.
My guy here is going to be DJ Chark, and I feel like we've talked about him so many times, but you know, he had the big game in Cincinnati week 4 with the 2 touchdowns, and then last week at Houston, 3 receptions, and then left the game with the ankle injury. I think this guy's just like injury prone at this point. He's missed so much time this year. I drafted him and then traded him like week 2, and I mean, I'm super happy I did that. No digs at the person I traded him to. But I just think, you know, with the way Gardner Minshew's playing, obviously Laviska Shenault and Keelan Cole are there, doing fairly well. James Robinson is obviously, you know, the rookie looking great on the ground this year. I just think DJ Chark, he's like, what's he, wide receiver 32 or 33 or something right now. It's just, I just can't have faith in this guy anymore, and he's going to be my descender. There's not really much more I need to say because we have talked about him so much.
Yeah, he was a descender like 2 weeks ago when he came back from injury, but then to get injured again is always tough.
Yeah, he came back from injury, didn't play week 3, came back week 4, had got 29.5 fantasy points in full PPR, and then he got injured again. It's just like frustrating, and I don't even own him, so I'm just going to use that spot for him there. But we'll go right into tight ends. Rob, you can go first this time. Who's going to be your tight end descender for the rest of the year?
You're not going to like this answer, but first off, I was just scrolling through the tight ends right here. Do you know they have Taysom Hill listed as a tight end in fantasy? It's interesting.
He's listed as everything.
Is he no matter where you go? Because like I just
running
clicked on him,
back.
it says eligible as tight end, so maybe it's just eligible for any position. But that was just funny. I was just scrolling through the other tight ends, but no, I had mine. It's Hayden Hurst. You've already mentioned he's been lackluster the past couple weeks. Anyways,
I'm perfectly fine with that. By the way, I'm not.
no, I know. But that was your guy like early on. It looked like that was a smart pick early on. I mean, Seattle had only 3 receptions, 38 yards, but that's nothing big. But then came out with a big, strong game against Dallas, 5 catches, 72 yards, and touchdown. Then had the Mike Evans game with the 1 catch, 1 yard, 1 touchdown. Then Green Bay actually had a good week, but then Carolina, and it just looks like this offense. I think week 2 we said start every single person that you have on the Atlanta Falcons offense, which means 3 wide receivers, quarterback, and running back, and tight end. Now I'm hesitant to start probably just Calvin Ridley. I mean, Julio Jones has to be a start just because of his talent, but he's been so on and off with injury. Offense doesn't really look good. They've started running the ball more because Todd Gurley's actually looked good, and Hayden Hurst just hasn't been as involved. It's really just if they're throwing it, it's Calvin Ridley. They've had Russell Gage mix in the mix here and there when he's healthy. They just don't seem to be looking the tight end's way for Hayden Hurst, at least. He's position ranked 14, and I can't see him getting much better than that. I can only see him getting worse, dropping down into the high teens for position ranked as tight ends. There's just a lot of other tight ends I like a lot more than him. As they're 0-5, I don't know where they go from here. Do they flip it around? They fire the coach? Like I don't know how you turn that around essentially.
Yeah.
So
I want to just clarify. Did you say you're hesitant to start Calvin Ridley?
No. He's the only one I'm not hesitant to start.
Oh, okay.
I said I went from
figured.
start everyone to I'm hesitant to start everyone but Calvin Ridley.
Okay. Yeah. No, I assumed so. I just wanted to clarify.
No, Calvin
because
Ridley
I
is
thought I
still a
misheard,
stud.
but I was gonna say just because of pure volume.
Yeah.
I mean, last week he had 8 receptions, 136 yards, no touchdown, but he still had over 20 fantasy
No, yeah,
points.
he's the one that he like eats up all the receptions. He's like, I don't know, there's a bunch of wide receivers out there that do that they maybe don't have the big play even if the offense is struggling, they're still just going to eat up receptions.
Yeah, and I think I had earlier in the show I had Todd Gurley as my ascender. I think the offense is on the rise. I don't think they can play worse than they have. I mean, Calvin Ridley had 0-0-0 stat line week 4 against Green Bay, and I mean it's not going to get any worse than that. Especially with all the pressure there, 0-5 now. I mean, something's got to change. Matt Ryan's got to have a fire under him to get the offense cranking. And like I said, Calvin Ridley, Todd Gurley are the guys to, and Julio obviously are the guys to get that going. I totally agree with you on Hurst, though. I was even higher on him before the draft than I was on Jonnu Smith. And, it looked good the first couple weeks, and then it's just, fallen off the wagon since then. I don't want to dance into Tyler's mojo at all, though. Tyler, who's going to be your tight end descender for the rest of the season?
Honorable mention with Dalton Schultz, but I will not go with him because I already talked about that.
Okay, that's my guy, so I'll talk about them again.
All right, perfect. So I'm going to go with a guy that's one of the top tight ends right now, Robert Tonyan.
Okay.
He had that monster game where he had 3 touchdowns, and he had another game where he had another fantastic day with 50 yards and a touchdown. But so there's a lot of things that are factoring into this right now. Devontae Adams is coming back. That's going to absolutely kill that red zone targets. And I believe Alan Lazard will be back later in the year as well. So that's even less targets that are going to be going his way. But really, the 2 big fantasy days that he had, I know he had a touchdown in week 2 as well, but I won't go into that. The 2 big games he had were against New Orleans and Atlanta, which are the worst at defending tight end.
Mm-hmm.
He had the 3 touchdowns games with Devontae Adams out. I thought Devontae Adams was going to play in that game and absolutely light up Atlanta, so I was disappointed about that. But he still only had 6 targets with Devontae Adams out, and nobody really did that much. No one was the standout on that Green Bay offense for target share. So I think with Devontae Adams back, he's going to eat up those targets. Tanya's going to drop to around below 5 targets a game, let's say. And the red zone targets are going to be absolutely killed because Devontae Adams is a great red zone threat. I believe Robert Tonyan may have a couple more games in him over the next few weeks. He plays Tampa Bay, Houston, Minnesota. So one of those could be a boom game, but he's not going to be a viable tight end for long. So if someone, for whatever reason, wants to trade for him, even though he's probably just picked up off of waivers, definitely try and trade him away. And he is going to be my descender.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, especially given the guys who, the other guys who've boomed this season when somebody else was out, like Chase Claypool comes to mind. Although we just found out that Deontay Johnson's not playing again this week, so Chase Claypool could be another flyer this week. But I agree. I just think, obviously Devontae Adams is the number one target there. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is another good target of Aaron Rodgers, but he just hasn't been there for production-wise. Obviously, Tunion's not going to have another week like that again. He might have his pop-off games here or there depending on who they play, like you said, but no, I think that's a fair assessment. My guy, as I kind of previewed, is going to be Dalton Schultz, and you guys obviously talked about the Dallas offense a lot. I wanted to talk about Dalton Schultz for a number of reasons. Obviously, the prime reason being that Dak Prescott is out for the season. Again, we've talked about that a lot too, which is terrible, but Dalton Schultz's targets have gone down every week since week 2. I mean, he had nine receptions week 1, 4, and then 1 reception last week against the Giants. Obviously, it's the game where Dak went out, but I just think given the two-headed monster, 3 if you include Michael Gallup, but Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, I just think those guys have been too good. And, like you said, and I'll echo the same argument, Andy Dalton's not the worst quarterback to come in as a backup. I mean, he's obviously been in the league for quite some time, parted ways with the Bengals this year for a number of reasons, which we don't have to dig into, but, he's certainly better than a Brian Hoyer or a Jarrett Stidham coming in, or there's just a lot worse options that they could have in the league, and I think Andy Dalton, where he was a starter for so long, he can kind of continue to move this offense forward, not in the same capacity at all that Dak was, but I think it hurts Dalton Schultz given, his production was going down before Dak got injured, and now just with the way their offense is running, I just think he's going to be a fader here, so that's going to be my descender. So that kind of wraps up that, unless you guys have anything else you want to add, that kind of wraps up that portion.
All set.
Perfect. So now I kind of want to, while we're on the subject, I want to talk about a couple of guys that we could consider dropping or sitting. This is just dropping or keeping. This is just gonna be a quick segment here, and you'll each give your 2 cents on the guy. The first guy I'm going to talk about is, I lost my notes, Joshua Kelly. Obviously with the state that offense is in, and Justin Jackson kind of being there as well. Tyler, I'll start with you first. How do you feel about him for the rest of the season?
I am ready to drop Joshua Kelly, and that's just because Justin Jackson I think he's more talented. He's the guy. They wanted to give an early chance to Joshua Kelly because he's kind of that young guy, but Justin Jackson's more established with that offense, and I think he's going to be the main guy. Shouldn't say the main guy, the 1B to Austin Eckler's 1A when Eckler returns. And Justin Jackson had over 20 touches last game, so that just tells me clearly that he's going to be the guy over Joshua Kelly.
Yeah, then Rob, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm fully on board that. Obviously, owning Eckler, I had to go get Justin Jackson when Eckler went down because Justin Jackson was coming back from injury. I thought this was going to be Joshua Kelly's backfield to run the ball, and then they were just going to use Justin Jackson as a spot for like third down back, and then pass catching. So I was already not too high on starting either, but to see Justin Jackson outrush Joshua Kelly as well, where 11 attempts versus 15 last week against New Orleans, that is what's really surprised me. I am staying away from Joshua Kelly like he's the plague or something. There's no chance. There's none of volume in that backfield without Eckler there to even risk starting both. And right now it just looks like it's Justin Jackson's backfield until Eckler comes back. So I have no interest in Joshua Kelly.
Okay, yeah, I pretty much reflect the same things as well. I'm the one that picked him up, and, I had hopes for him. He looked good for a couple weeks there. I want to try and spread these positions out a lot around. Geez, I can't talk. I want to try and spread these positions out a little bit, but there's another running back I want to talk about, Melvin Gordon. Obviously, some circumstances changing with him in the past week, given his issue he had on Tuesday night. Phillip Lindsay's obviously going to be someone you want to roll out this week, but Rob, I'll go right back to you because Tyler went first. Melvin Gordon, what are you doing with him for the rest of the season?
I think he's one you got to keep because I don't know how Phillip Lindsay's going to come back. Obviously, Phillip Lindsay had a really good year last year. Really, really good if you drafted him later because he obviously fell a little bit last year. But with Melvin Gordon coming in, I wasn't even too high on him anyways because I wasn't sure after sitting out for most of the year, holdout sort of situation. In the last team we just talked about, the Chargers, I wasn't sure where Melvin Gordon was going to fit in. He's done really well, and I was actually, I think a few weeks ago, talking about having him as an ascender for the rest of the year. But then, obviously, with Philip Lindsay coming back, Melvin Gordon sitting out, it's one of those situations where does Philip Lindsay come in out of nowhere and then like cement him as like what he was last year, and then Melvin Gordon really doesn't see the field as much. So I'm holding on Melvin Gordon now. I'm not just dropping him at like rushing to drop him like I am Joshua Kelly as much. But I'm still not confident because I think Philip Lindsay will take over as the lead back there. But Melvin Gordon has tons of talent and has shown really well, especially with the struggling offense. You do have to factor in the fact that they haven't had their starting quarterback. And as a running back, that usually stinks because your offense is bad and you're not getting as many touches. But he's actually done really well with the limited time on offense. So I'm not full out panic mode on Melvin Gordon, but it's not looking good with Philip Lindsay back.
Yeah, and then Tyler, what's your take on that?
I'm definitely not dropping Melvin Gordon, but I'm not going to start him any higher than like a flex spot or if you're desperate as a running back too. I mean, he's probably out this week. I mean, it says likely out for Sunday, but he didn't travel with the team, so there's no way he's playing on Sunday. And we'll get a good chance to see what Philip Lindsay produces when he plays New England. It's going to be tough sledding against New England, but see if he's getting the ball a ton. Just watch to see if he looks healthy and can make guys miss, because that's the concern with Philip Lindsay coming back, and it's going to be a running back by committee when Philip Lindsay is back. So Melvin Gordon not droppable, but his value just takes a major hit, and at best for me, I would start him in a flex.
Yeah, fair point. Last guy I want to talk about here is John Brown. Obviously, this offense has not looked great. Or excuse me, the offense has looked good, but he has not, given the inconsistency with the injuries. And then, obviously, Diggs is the top target here. Evan Ingram's kind of been hit or miss every week. He kind of started off the season well, a couple touchdowns, and then, like I said, inconsistency since then the game being moved. Tyler, I'll go right back to you. What are you doing with John Brown for the rest of the season?
I am going to keep him on my roster, but I'm not going to start him until further notice. He's not getting a crazy amount of targets, and obviously he missed last game, and he's not fully healthy. He's banged up, so not a guy you can trust coming right off an injury anyways. He's not a guy I'd want to start uninjured, so when he does come back, just hold on to him. If you don't have an IR spot and you're looking for other guys, that would be the only case where I would drop him. But Stephon Diggs is clearly the guy. They're similar style receivers where they can catch those long touchdowns and whatnot, but John Brown's targets have just taken a major hit this year already, and now he's injured, so he's taking my last bench spot, I think.
And then Rob, obviously this is, you're the owner of his wide receiver who's playing fantastic this year, but it just doesn't seem to be there for John Brown. But what's your take on this player?
Yeah, I don't know, because I mean, he came out strong. Obviously, 10 targets week 1, 6 targets week 2, but then dropped off to 2 targets and then 5. It's just not a lot of targets. I mean, Cole Beasley is like, I thought John Brown would be the guy like third down, kind of long. They have to pass the ball. Stephon Diggs is going to take most of the coverage. He's going to find a spot like. He's going to go out like the 9 yards that they need for the first down and sit right on that first down spot and kind of work that first down. But Cole Beasley's kind of taking that. Cole Beasley's been fantastic, and that's the big issue is if Cole Beasley stays as fantastic, they start working in Isaiah McKenzie a little bit more. He's gotten a few more touches as the weeks go on, not a lot, but anything taking away from John Brown, who kind of needed the targets to begin with, is not great. Josh Allen does spread the ball. There's a lot of passing to go around, but they have a lot of harder schedule than they had at the start of the year coming up. So the rest of the year is a lot harder schedule. So as a fringe player at the start of the year when their schedule is pretty easy, I'm not trusting John Brown. I mean, Stephon Diggs is still going to be fine. Josh Allen should still be fine, but they can spread the ball around too much. And Cole Beasley's taking too much away from John Brown.
Yeah, not to mention, well, I guess I already mentioned Evan Ingram, who I was debating in my ascenders and descenders.
I think you have the wrong team for Evan Ingram. Did you?
Oh, Giants.
What?
Yeah,
Dawson
right.
Knox. I was going to say Dawson Knox and Tyler.
Yeah,
Kroft.
I don't know why I always do that. It's because I'm reading something else while you were talking. So yeah,
Rude.
say it again.
He said rude.
I just said rude.
Yeah, I gotta be ready for the transition. I'm sorry. I mean.
Are we talking about
probably
Evan
cut that
Ingram?
part out. No, we're not talking about Evan Ingram.
Because Tyler hates him.
Okay, I would drop him.
Tyler hates him. Pal.
So that's going to be an axe and an axe right there. But anyway, so now I kind of want to go into our game previews for this week. Obviously, as we said earlier, the the schedule is looking like it's going to stay pretty normal, which is a good thing. First game I want to talk about is the Texans going to Tennessee to take on the Titans. Obviously, the Titans undefeated coming off their postponed game. They came back and looked fantastic, put up a ton of points, and the Texans also, are now starting to turn their season around. Just to point out a couple guys, obviously we talked about David Johnson, hasn't really looked like himself since that week 1 game. So there was some concern around him. And then Brandon Cooks had that fantastic week, but we listed him as a dud the rest of the season, studs and duds the other day. So Rob, kind of break down this game and what you're thinking this is going to do.
Yeah, so I would have thought this would have been a good game. Obviously, I have Will Fuller. I would have thought this would have been a good game for him, but the Titans' defense looked way better last week against, like we just talked about the team, the Bills. Their offense looked way more explosive. I did not think the Titans were going to be able to stop them. They were 4-0, but it wasn't like a hard 4-0. They've earned it, but like it wasn't like crazy. Then they play the Bills, or I guess they would have been 3-0, and they just beat them. They just went out and beat them, and the Titans have not looked good. I mean, the Texans have not looked good. Jeez, Texans, Titans. Back and forth. But no, I think Derrick Henry's going to be fine. But I'm nervous. I have to start Will Fuller just based on bye weeks and injuries, but I'm very nervous that the Texans offense will look bad against the Titans after obviously having a very good week against Jacksonville the week before. But I'm very nervous on starting any of the Texans right now, including Brandon Cooks, who I know a lot of people picked up because of his last couple weeks.
Tyler, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
I'll just support Rob here. I don't feel good about starting Texans. Even David Johnson, I know he's definitely like a flex play that you can just roll out every single week, but no confidence. Deshaun Watson should be decent. I guess that's it for Texans that I feel comfortable with starting.
Yeah, I agree. Next game is the Ravens at the Eagles. This is an interesting game because, both of these offense, while the Ravens have Lamar Jackson, who's kind of getting back into his form, the Eagles' offense has obviously looked terrible. Zach Ertz is not dependent at all, not reliable. Miles Sanders back from injury, looked really good last week. And then we'll have Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson coming back. I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Eagles perform this week against, the Ravens obviously have a good defense. So, Tyler, I'll start with you this time. What do you think this game's going to look like? And, I mean, is Lamar going to continue, getting back to his form and kind of dominating everyone they play?
I mean, to me, the Ravens are the heavy favorite in this game.
Yeah.
They're going to win the game, no doubt about it. That might hurt Lamar Jackson's value a little bit. And I'm not quite sure that Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson are going to be back for this game.
I think Alshon
I know
Jeffrey
they'll be
is,
back.
but Deshaun Jackson's questionable, I think, is where it's at. But go ahead.
I see Alshon listed as out as well with Deshaun Jackson. They were just ruled out,
Okay.
I think, late last night. So Travis Fulgham is a guy I'm excited about. I'm going to have a little player prop for him at the end of the episode. But Carson Wentz just finds a way to score points, I guess. I don't really know how they do it. They don't look that great doing it. But the Ravens offense, I'm watching Lamar Jackson. I don't think it's going to be a big game for him. But, I mean, he's if you draft him, he's your QB1. He's the most talented QB in the NFL as far as fantasy, we should say, because he's a great running QB. But he hasn't been getting as many rushing attempts, not nearly as many as he did last year. So, down on him a bit this year, which is why you should never draft QBs early.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side of the ball, I'm really excited for Travis Fulgham, and I actually have him slotted in a couple of leagues at a flex position because I am banged up.
Rob, I don't know what input you want to add to this game here.
No, I mean, the only hit I could see here is that the Eagles, when they've been bad offensively, have kind of relied on Miles Sanders to take off some of the pressure since he's come back healthy. However, obviously facing the Baltimore Ravens are the 5th ranked rushing defense, but they're not an incredible defense passing wise. They're 18th ranked, middle of the table sort of thing, late middle of the table in the NFL. So if Carson Wentz is going to have a good game, this has to be it, because they're not going to be able to run the ball to get him out of tough situations. That defense is just way too good at stopping the run. So maybe that piggybacks on Tyler's love of Travis Fulgham this week, because I think it has to be. There's no way the Eagles come out of this game with even a chance to win if Carson Wentz and Fulgham aren't hooking up for a lot of yards. And then I don't know if the Eagles might be motivated by seeing the fact that the division stinks. They were in first place because of a tie, and now they see Dak go down. This division is theirs to lose at this point with Dak going down. So I don't know if that motivates them in any way. They've been horrible, but they still have a chance to win the division. They have to take advantage of a game like this, even if it's against like a very good Ravens team.
Yeah, I think that's fair analysis, and I agree with what you said about Carson Wentz and their offense as well. I just think, it's going to be tough sailing for Miles Sanders on the ground as much as I need him to do well. I think he's kind of like the high point of their offense right now just because of the arsenal that Carson Wentz has and the way he's been playing, but I don't want to beat that to a pulp too bad. Next game is the Falcons at the Vikings, and obviously we already talked about the Falcons offense a lot and what that's going to look like. I think this game could be another shootout. I feel like we say that every week with the Falcons. But obviously, Kirk Cousins is playing, well enough to be a streaming option in fantasy. He's taking care of Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson's having his shots here or there, and I obviously talked about Irv Smith. Just given, I don't think there's too much we need to say about this game. Tyler, I don't know if you have anything you want to add, just because we talked about the Falcons a lot already, but I'll let you say your piece.
Just with Julio Jones coming back, I'm excited to see him play again and see if he looks even remotely healthy. But yeah, should be a high-scoring game. I'm firing up plenty guys that are in this
including
game.
Alexander Mattison stepping in for Dalvin Cook, who's officially out, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm excited to see if he steps in like he did last week and continues.
Yeah, definitely has top 5 upside, especially against this defense. Next game I want to talk about is the Browns at the Steelers, and I think obviously one of the main stories here is still no Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt's leading the backfield with D'Ernest Johnson behind him. Steelers have been pretty much the best running defense this week, although last week they did surrender a couple touchdowns to Miles Sanders. One of them was the 70-yard grab. I think, Odell continues to be a starting option, and, I still haven't changed my tune about Jarvis Landry. I just don't think he's sustainable every week. On the Steelers, Deontay Johnson's out again, so, obviously Juju's number one, and then, Chase Claypool's up there. But Rob, what do you think about Kareem Hunt going against this defense, and then how the wide receivers for the Steelers are going to shake out?
Yeah, Kareem Hunt I'm not looking forward to, as Pittsburgh ranks number 2 against the run this year. And Cleveland ranks number 4, so this could be a very slow-paced game because I think there's going to be a lot of passing. So obviously usually the more running, the faster pace the game. So this could be a high-scoring game as well because I think it's going to be pretty slow with a lot of passing because I don't think either team against a top 5 run defense is going to be able to get anything going on the ground. Connor hasn't looked amazing anyways, so I don't think he's going to get going. Hunt obviously stepping in for Chubb. And D'Ernest Johnson's there too. I don't think they're going to get anything going. So if there was a Jarvis Landry game, I know you just said that you're not very high on him. This has to be the game because they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. Odell should get his touches anyways. But no, I think this could be another big Chase Claypool game as well. I love Juju Smith-Schuster and stuff, but Chase Claypool with Deontay Johnson out could step up and be huge again. So just look at I really like the wide receivers right now. I wouldn't be afraid to start any of like those two, I guess. I don't think you're going as far as starting James Washington, but for Chase Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm starting both because the Browns' defense is not very good against the pass, but very good against the run.
Yeah, that's fair, and I think that's pretty much spot on to my analysis as well. Next game is the Bengals at the Colts. Bengals going to Indianapolis. Obviously, Joe Burrow last week had a quieter week than we're used to. He broke his streak of 3 weeks in a row throwing for over 300 yards. Joe Mixon, another quiet week after the big week. I feel like this could be another week for him to perform well and, instill confidence in his fantasy managers. For the Colts, we obviously already talked about Jonathan Taylor. And, Darius Slayton's probably someone you want to roll out this week. Phillip Rivers hasn't been great by any means, but I think just against this defense, he can play. He can have a good game. But Tyler, I'll let you kind of break down this game.
Did you say Darius Slayton as in the New York Giants Darius Slayton?
Is that what I said? That's not what I meant to say.
I heard Darius Slayton. Maybe I'm crazy, but who was the guy you were talking about?
Well, I was talking about Joe Mixon, and then Phillip Rivers, and how he hasn't really looked good. But you can kind of break down this game for us.
Yeah, so I think the Colts are a very good defense. The Colts are the heavy favorites here again. They're favored by 7.5 points. They should easily take this game. It's going to be a great test for Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon. And I guess Tyler Boyd as well. But Joe Burrow, he's not in a startable position after he had a bad week last week. I think this Colts defense is going to be one of the best in the league. I'm hoping to see a good game out of Joe Mixon, because if Joe Mixon can survive this game, a game where they should be down most of the game, if he survives with yards and gets a touchdown, then I think he's pretty safe for the rest of the year. I'm still kind of trying to trade him away. I'm hoping he has one more big week before I trade him personally, but a get-right game for Jonathan Taylor for me. I know I had him as an ascender, so if he can get a little more touches, he should be able to absolutely destroy this Bengals defense and should have a monster game this week. The wide receivers, I think I'm benching all of them in this game. That includes both teams for T.Y. Hilton and Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, I was going to mention T.Y. Hilton next, and he's what I meant to say before. If I didn't say that, I apologize. But I think this could be the week where he really, if there's a week for him to, I don't even want to say a breakout, but get right, I think it's this week. Again, like I said, Phillip Rivers hasn't been playing well, but I just think they can exploit this matchup. For me, I just think Joe Burrow has been playing too well to bench Tyler Boyd. But I certainly understand where you're coming from. Rob, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to this conversation.
No, just the fact, I'm kind of echoing it as well, that the Colts defense is the best defense in the league. They're the number 1 pass defense and the number 3 run defense. So they are just the best defense in the league. I would be afraid of starting Joe Burrow. It kind of stinks because we talked about T. Higgins a lot stepping out as well, I'm afraid. Mm-hmm. He might take a step back this weekend. It might cause panic there. But no, I think this has to be a Jonathan Taylor game. This just has to be. The Cincinnati Bengals defense, as bad as it's been, has not been that bad against the pass. I think they're top 10 against the pass. So it has to be Jonathan Taylor eating all game. I hope he does. I want to see the rookie do well, pay off if you drafted him a round early or something like that. I kind of like what he did in our league a little bit a round earlier than we thought, just because we're all high on the rookies this year.
Definitely, and I think it's even more crucial this year with all the depth we need. Next game is the Lions at the Jaguars. Obviously, there's a couple. I almost had Marvin Jones as part of my discussion earlier with the drop and keep, because obviously, Kenny Golladay and T.J. Hawkinson are taking a lot of the production, although Hawkinson's kind of been hit or miss. I think this could be a good game for him this week against the Jaguars defense. Flip to the Jaguars side. Obviously, James Robinson's someone you want to start again. DJ Chark, we talked about earlier. So obviously that leaves Laviska Shenault and Keelan Cole. Rob, I'll kind of let you go first on this game.
Yeah, I obviously like Jaguars because I like Gardner Minshew. James Robinson's been fantastic. But between the two, the pass catchers and Keelan Cole and Laviska Shenault, Laviska Shenault's actually technically the best fantasy wide receiver on this team because DJ Chark's injuries. But with him back, it's gonna be spread out a bit. The Giants, Jesus, I think we just want to talk about the Giants.
I know
we keep bringing up Giants players.
I keep mixing up
and then I just said the Giants. But no, the Lions defense is actually not too bad against the pass. So they're already a good pass defense. So I'm not really high on the Jaguars wide receivers. The Lions defense overall is not good enough to stop the entire offense of the Jaguars. So I'm still kind of I think I'm starting Gardner Minshew in a league. I actually am in my other league over some other players. So I'm not too afraid the Jaguars will take a step back against the Lions, but I'm not confident in starting any of the 3 wide receivers because I just don't know how they're going to shake out. Laviska Shenault's a rookie. Keelan Cole and DJ Chark are still pretty young. Gardner Minshew's a young quarterback. Hasn't found his favorite yet. So I'm very nervous on any of the wide receivers, but still think the offense will have a productive day. So if you are forced to start one, you only have one on your team, I'll throw one in the flex spot just because the Lions aren't very good. But I'm not confident in that decision.
Yeah, I agree with you as well, and I don't, Tyler. I don't know if you have anything you want to add before I kind of say the rest of my bit,
Yeah,
but go ahead.
yeah. I'll just say James Robinson basically emerged already as an every week starter. This is a good matchup for him, so I'm firing him up. But a guy that I'm keeping an eye on is Adrian Peterson.
Hmm.
If he performs well this game, he kind of moves up into that tier of running backs with all these COVID cancellations, all the injuries. He'll probably, if he has a good game here, gets maybe 20 touches, then he can move into an RB2. I don't know. I don't think he will get the 20 touches this game, but if you were going to start Adrian Peterson, this would be a good matchup to start him in.
No, that's fair. I was actually kind of gonna echo that. And, talk about DeAndre Swift, who's not really existing, which is sad because he was kind of like a promising rookie coming into the season. I want to kind of transition into the Bears at the Panthers game. This game I think could be a good game for a number of reasons. Obviously Allen Robinson and Nick Foles are pairing up pretty well together. Just purely based off volume, Allen Robinson's obviously a wide receiver, one you're starting every week. Outside of that, obviously Anthony Miller, I was also going to talk about as my wide receiver descender. He's had a good start to the season, and it's just kind of fallen off since then. Obviously, Robinson's a clear-cut number one, but it seems like Darryl Mooney's kind of more taking that wide receiver 2 spot every week, and Miller's kind of falling off. And then for the Panthers, obviously, CMC was eligible to return this week. That's obviously not happening, so we'll have another week of Mike Davis. The Bears' run defense has been fairly stout this year, I think. Obviously we talked about, Robbie Anderson, and Tyler had him as his riser or his ascender this week. Tyler, I don't know. I'll let you break down this game.
Yeah, there's a lot of fantasy players that are going to be involved here on both sides. You got guys you might be starting on Chicago, David Montgomery, Allen Robinson. You should be starting them, and then Jimmy Graham as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of, I want to see what both these teams are made of. I think both of them have overperformed up until this point. So I kind of don't know which way this game's going to go. It's a good test for the Bears defense, but it's also a good test for Carolina's offense. Game I'm keeping an eye on. I'm not shying away from starting any of the guys on either teams in Carolina. You had already touched Mike Davis, Robbie Anderson, and even DJ Moore. I'd definitely start everybody involved in this game because you don't know. I don't have a good feeling for exactly what's going to happen, but there should at least be a decent amount of points scored.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree with you. Rob, I assume you do as well. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
No, I think this is where if you are a CMC owner and you're the one that got Mike Davis, like our league, you're happy. But if you happen to just get Mike Davis when CMC went down because you outbid the CMC owner, this is your get the last bit of fantasy points out of him because the Bears defense, as good as they are on paper, they're not very good against the rush. So Mike Davis should be able to do really well. I am a little bit afraid of Robbie Anderson this week taking a step back because I don't know how Bridgewater's going to break down. The Bears just like to play a really scrappy, close game. They play down to the competition. They play up to the competition. It doesn't matter how bad or good the team they're playing against is. They just want a scrappy, close game. So I really like the running backs in here, and this has to be a David Montgomery game. If not, then are you going to see him on my descender next week?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Next game is the football team at the Giants. Rob, we can finally talk about the Giants, apparently.
We've wanted to for so long, and I have nothing to say about them.
No kidding.
So gross. I would not want to talk about them.
Well, I mean, yeah, this game as a whole, I feel like we could brush by pretty quickly. Obviously, Dwayne Haskins is not playing again this week. Hurts Terry's value, and then on the ground, Antonio Gibson. It's just scary in Washington, scary in New York. Darius Slayton's, again, probably someone you're going to want to start just because of volume and, the assets on that offense. Devonta Freeman looked decent last week for coming in the offense only a couple weeks after signing. I really don't have much more to add to this game. I don't know if either of you do.
I'll take over. It's for all these players, Gibson, McLaurin, Slayton, Freeman, you can start them this game because they're good matchups.
Before you say that, Washington is a top 7 pass defense. Sneaky top 7 pass defense Washington is, so I'd be a little afraid of Slayton, but I think this game's going to get ugly quickly, and I think this one of those games that on paper you have none of these players on your fantasy team because they're bad teams, but when they play each other, they happen to all go off at the same time. So I can agree with that, but Washington is a sneaky pass defense team. But no,
mean,
I
I
have to
could
start
see
Terry
this
due to injuries, and I'm not
outside-
excited about it. I'm not looking forward to it.
Yeah, outside those 4 guys, there's nobody even worth mentioning to me that could even.
Daniel
get
Jones is
involved.
still the lead
I-
rusher for the New York Football Giants. Daniel Jones still has the
I
most
was
yards. on
gonna
that
say
team.
I could
So,
see
that says
I
everything.
could
Yeah,
see this.
but he only has 2 passing touchdowns and 5 interceptions.
Yes.
So
No, I'm not saying he's good. I'm just saying that's how bad that running core is. That he is the leading rusher. Still in week 6.
Yeah, I could see this game ending like 7-5 because the Giants will just get a safety or something.
7-5 or 40-37. There's no in between.
yeah,
Yeah. Next game, obviously our hometown game, Broncos of the Patriots, which was questionable for a little while, but it seems as of right now anyway that the game will be played. Melvin Gordon, we kind of already talked about, who's I believe out this week officially, so that'll leave Philip Lindsay. Obviously, no one likes coming and running against a Patriots defense, even despite the pieces we're missing this week. I just feel like, Philip Lindsay's coming off of a very small role, and, Melvin Gordon was the guy, but now that's kind of like a changing of the guard there in Denver for the Patriots. Obviously, Damian Harris is kind of the guy to look at this week. Should have Cam Newton back, it seems like. I've been trying to follow that, but I haven't seen the latest on him yet. Terrified if Jarrett Stidham has to start, but it doesn't look like that'll be the case. Rob, kind of walk us through this game.
Yeah, I think this is the return of the QB game. Neither team has looked incredible offensively since both their QBs have gone down. Talk about Drew Lock and Cam Newton. Looks like Cam Newton. I see something here that's like a video saying with Cam back, can Patriots win? So it looks like he's gonna be back. So that's good. Drew Lock is back. So no more Jeff Driscoll. So that means Noah Fant, Jerry Jeudy, gonna look a lot better.
Or Brett Ripon.
Patriots defense is very good, so I'm still not. And it is Drew Lock's first game back. I'm not very excited about either of that. Just against the Patriots defense, I'm a little scared, maybe a little biased. I don't know, but Damian Harris could have a good game here, and I think you already mentioned it, so I'm not gonna go too much further. But I think he's the ones to watch from a fantasy perspective this week. And I know Tyler's excited because he picked him up in every single league that exists.
No, I agree with you, and it's all right to take a little dig at Tyler there. We all love to
Hey,
do that.
it might
Next
work out this
game-
week. It'll work out this week.
Next game, we'll talk about the divisional matchup, Jets at the Dolphins. Jets offense, we've talked about, well, I guess we've talked about every team every week, but it's just a scary scene. Joe Flacco, I don't know if is Sam Darnold coming back this week or if we'll have Joe Flacco again. Le'Veon Bell's gone. Obviously, that was big news this week, so that kind of left like Frank Gore in front of at the top of the depth chart there for the Dolphins.
The most
hooray!
exciting running back of all time.
Fire him up,
And then
RB1.
for the Dolphins, obviously, the Beard having a fairly good season. They put up a huge amount of points last week, which I was super surprised about. I think this game they'll do it again just because they're playing the Jets. I never really have much to say about the Jets or any of these teams.
I'm excited to see what
because
Frank Gore does as being like the lead guy there.
Yeah.
I mean, their other option is what?
I'm excited.
Perrine. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for Jamison Crowder on the Jets.
I was
and
just gonna-
That's it. I'm trying to find a way to start him if you have him on your roster, but
Yeah, I was just going
I
to
wouldn't
say
go out of
he's
my way to
probably
start him.
I would yeah, he's like the only person on this team you remotely trust. I just don't see starting Frank Gore even against the Dolphins. Obviously, LaMichael Pirine are not starting. Just want to give this offense a couple weeks to see how it shakes out without Le'Veon Bell. Maybe they add an asset. Who knows? I haven't heard anything about that yet, but I guess we'll see. Next game, we'll head down to Tampa. The Packers coming to town. Tampa offense, again, we kind of talked about, super interesting. Chris Godwin coming back this week. Mike Evans playing through the injuries the past couple weeks. Gronk as well, a little more involved, but still not what we were expecting to see out of him. And then on the Packers side, obviously Aaron Jones continuing his strong season. Devontae is back. Robert Tonyan, we already talked about. Tyler, I feel like you have more implication in this game, so I want to see what you have to say about this.
yeah, I'm very excited for the return of Devontae Adams. I mean, Green Bay still has the big boys. They have Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, and Aaron Rodgers. Those guys you're starting I think, in any matchup. And this Tampa Bay defense has looked good so far. A guy that I'm keeping an eye on this game is Ronald Jones, since Leonard Fournette did nothing last game. If Ronald Jones is the main guy, then he's probably going to be the main guy the rest of the year, because this is like a must-win game for Tampa Bay right now.
And,
Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers is going to be an awesome game. There should be plenty of points to be had. Green Bay's defense isn't that good, but their offense is also unstoppable. And Devontae Adams was frustrated last week after he didn't get to play. They clearly didn't need him, but with his return, I'm very excited for it. This isn't going to be a crazy good game for Devontae Adams. They might ease him back in, but the rest of the season, Devontae Adams should be a monster.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had a thought. You said something about, I think, Devontae Adams, and I had something I was going to say, and then I forgot what it was. But Rob, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to this game.
Nothing fantasy wise, but I know we have 2 Monday night games this week because of the moving around of the Bills Chief game. But how are we only have 2 4:00 games and like 14 1:00 games? I know we're starting to get bye weeks in. But I don't like that scheduling. And one of the 4:00 games is the Jets and the Dolphins. So we literally only have one game to watch.
Yeah,
we have one game to watch. It's the Packers Buccaneers. So I really hope this is a good game. So even if I'm playing people fantasy wise, I want this just to be a high scoring game. So nothing really fantasy wise, but I just was looking at the scheduling just for the first time. I noticed that we only have 2 games, and one of them is a Thursday night specialty. So yeah, not excited about the NFL in that one, but they're doing the best with COVID.
Yeah.
So.
We'll talk about Sunday night football now. Rams at the 49ers. I think this game's going to be a run over, honestly. I think the Rams are just going to clean house, even though it's in San Francisco. Obviously, their defense is decimated, or not decimated, but it's severely hurting. Obviously, I've echoed this week after week, but no Nick Bosa, no Solomon Thomas. And last week, they just got absolutely destroyed. Got me -4 points in fantasy. For the Rams, I think they're just going to have their way, especially the defense, who's looking really good on the pass. The pass defense this year. Jimmy Garoppolo looks like he's going to be back, but it's just...
Is he?
I just
Do they want him back?
I think he's going to start this week, but that doesn't mean he'll make it through the whole game. I just think the Rams, despite all the things we said about the backfield and how mixed up it is, I still think Darrell Henderson's the guy. Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, obviously, Cooper Kupp gets more volume, but either of them could get a touchdown. I just think, for me at least, my opinion, the Rams are just going to run them over and move on to Week 7, but I don't know if either of you disagrees with me or wants to add anything.
No, I think you're right here. The Rams should win this game pretty easily. 49ers are wicked banged up, but I'm not that excited about anybody fantasy-wise. It's bad matchups for both teams.
Yeah, I said earlier that I was excited.
And if San Francisco... Sorry, if San Francisco saves their season, it would be this game. I just don't see it happening. Yeah,
I said earlier about Debo when I was talking about him as an ascender. I don't think this is the game. I had said the Rams' offense. This is one of those situations where you watch the game, your eyes say something different than the stats. I didn't think the Rams' defense looked that good against the pass, because I saw just like a lot of free touchdowns that they were giving away. But they are the second-ranked pass defense, so... Again, that kind of just goes with what you had already said. They are a good pass defense. So this is going to be Mostert came back last week, obviously, from injury. So I expect him to have another decent week. If there's any chance for the 49ers to be good, he has to have another decent week. Look for Kittle to get more involved than he did last week, more of 2 weeks ago when he came back from injury. But yeah, no, it really just depends on who's at playing quarterback right now for the 49ers. But either way, I have no disagreements that the Rams should just stomp this game.
Yeah, I think that's pretty straight cut forward. Next game, Monday afternoon game, originally Thursday Night Football, obviously moved because the Bills played the Titans on Tuesday last week, which is a nice surprise. The game was a surprise, though. I mean, the Titans completely ran them over coming off a week off. Or what was 2 weeks on? It was like 2 weeks, 16 days.
Yeah, they only had like 2 practices in 2 weeks.
Yeah, so, I mean, surprising out of the Titans. Obviously, they looked great. But this game, obviously, 2 AFC powerhouses this year, the Chiefs and the Bills. The Chiefs will be going to Buffalo. I'm excited for this game. I think it's going to be, well, first of all, I like that it starts at 5 o'clock. That I don't have to wait till 8:15 to watch football. Secondly, I just think it's going to be a great game. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. No Sammy Watkins this week, so Mecole Hardman's definitely somebody to watch, and I'm starting him this week in anywhere that I have him. Just again, because it's Patrick Mahomes and Sammy Watkins is out, obviously you're going to roll out Tyreek Hill. I think that Clyde can have a good week. Like I said earlier in the show, I think he's going to have a prove it week this week, especially with Le'Veon Bell breathing down his neck. I pretty much starting next week, I would assume they'll have some packages involving Le'Veon Bell for week 7. For the Bills, obviously Josh Allen's Josh Allen. The Chiefs defense has been hit or miss depending on the week. I think him and Diggs are going to continue to light it up. On the ground, obviously we talked about the options there, but Tyler, kind of give us a breakdown for this game.
So this is a game that I'm very excited about. 2 4-1 teams. For actual football, I'm excited. Not as excited fantasy-wise. Really good test for both teams. Both QB should be awesome in this game. It should be a relatively high-scoring game. My main concern here is the running backs for both teams, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Devin Singletary. I don't think either of them are going to be hyper-involved in this game because there should be a lot of open run pass and ball. Doesn't matter how good Buffalo's defense is. The Chiefs are just going to come out slinging the ball. Mm-hmm. And now Josh Allen has shown this year that he can keep up with that style of offense and throw that kind of firepower out there. I mean, Josh Allen's arm is way stronger than Patrick Mahomes' so They got that. And it's a 4-point spread right now. I think the Chiefs are definitely going to win this game because I think they can absolutely pour on the points, and just Buffalo isn't quite handled or isn't quite built to handle this kind of style offense. I wouldn't go as far as feeling comfortable to start a guy like Mecole Hardman.
Okay.
I think if you're desperate in our 8-man league, I don't know how you would be starting Mecole Hardman.
Yeah.
Maybe I could see it in a 12-man flex, but it should just be a big game for all the big boys and for both teams, as in Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs and then Mahomes to Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Those are the guys that I think it's a good matchup for those guys, but outside of that, it's not super exciting.
No, I think you make a fair point on Mecole Hardman, and I mean, like we said when we started the show, we're going to try and do the analysis based off like 10, 12-man leagues, so that's kind of the angle I was taking there.
Okay.
But no, definitely a fair analysis either way. I could see, I certainly wouldn't down you for not starting him. I just think he's someone you could certainly use as a flyer this week. Rob, I'll give you a chance to chime in on this game unless you're all set.
No, I just hope for a bounce back week for Josh Allen and the Bills. Obviously that affects me, but I think just from like an AFC standpoint, it'll be fun if they bounce back and actually put up a good game against what looks to be the favorite in the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. Last game we'll talk about, it's Monday Night Football, the Cardinals at the Cowboys. Obviously, we talked about the Cowboys offense a lot. I think this is going to be a big week for Zeke. The Cardinals the Cardinals defense, hasn't been anything super special against the run. So, we talked about Andy Dalton in the receiving core, the tight end for the Cardinals. I think Kyler Murray is going to have a really good week this week, probably top 3 quarterback for the week. I think him and DeAndre Hopkins are just going to go off. We kind of talked about this on our show earlier in the week, that Christian Kirk can probably be a streaming option this week as well. But I mean, outside of that, I'm not really looking to start anyone else in this game. I think it'll be interesting to see how Andy Dalton factors in and what he does with the offense. I don't know who I have in this game winning. I want to say the Cowboys just because I think Zeke's going to completely take over and run this game. I think it's going to be a huge week for him. And then I don't say that biased. That's what I think based off my analysis. And then, again, for the Cardinals, I think we could see a big dose of Chase Edmonds this week just because of the way the Cowboys defense is. I still think that Chase Edmonds overtakes Kenyon Drake at some point this season. I don't think it's this week necessarily. I'm not expecting it for the next few weeks, but I think unless Kenyon Drake looks fantastic this week, I think that change of power is going to happen in that offense. Rob, I'll let you go first on this game.
One thing, Noah Fant just became out all of a sudden, so I've had him as a riser, and he's now officially injured this week. So good for the Patriots, I guess, but bad for me fantasy-wise. Sorry, it literally popped up as you were talking, so just officially became out. Love that for us. But no, I think high scoring. I mean, the Cowboys, like I said, we said they're not going to slow down too much with Andy Dalton. They're going to slow down, but it's not going to be too much. Pray for Kenyon Drake. I don't know. That's about it. I mean, I think it's gonna be high score. I don't think either team's gonna slow down here. I don't think this is the game to really slow down for even the Cowboys after taking such a big hit. Just see how much Andy Dalton knows the offense. I guess this will be a test for him, but I don't see it being bad for either team right now.
Yeah, and then Tyler, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to this game.
Yeah, if you've been starting guys like CD Lamb and Michael Gallup every week, then there's no reason to stop this week. You got to see what Andy Dalton can do with this team. So I'd start him this week and then just kind of see how it goes from there.
That's fair. I think, yeah, I like that. And I think, again, I agree it'll be high scoring. I think it'll be a big week on the ground for the Cowboys and could be for the Cardinals as well, depending on performance and game script. But that'll kind of wrap up this portion of our show. As we always do on our second show of the week, I'm going to turn it over to Tyler here and let him do his bit.
Aye, aye, Captain. We are due. We had a tough week last week. We did good the week before, so if you've been following, we're all right. Fortunately for me, I kind of screwed you guys over. I also lost money with it, though, because of my parlay that I tweeted out. I had the Chiefs in that. So I took that parlay, but I also had the same exact parlay without the Chiefs in it because I thought Mahomes is going to have COVID, and I just put all my money in eventually. So I survived. I got money in the bank. It's a good thing nobody's listening to these picks because you should pay me.
There's a lot of people.
But anyways, here we are. I feel great. What were you going to say, Ben?
I just said there's a lot of people listening to them, actually.
Oh, all right. Sorry, everyone.
No one's actually putting their money on what Tyler says.
We'll get it all back this week because I feel fantastic about it. So I have one pick for us this week. It's the Kansas City Chiefs -4 against the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills looked very shaky last week, and that was their first real test against the Tennessee Titans. They're not, as we spoke to about the Monday night game, they're not going to be able to handle the Chiefs' offense. The Chiefs are just a more experienced team for this kind of matchup. I think they're taking it by at least 4. I wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs, I could call them the Cheats too, because, we're biased Pats fans. But the Chiefs, they're built to destroy the Buffalo Bills. I wouldn't be shocked if they win the game by like 15 or more. Buffalo's a good team, a very good team, but they're not well equipped to handle this game around the season. All right, so my next pick, we're doing a 3-team parlay of all heavy favorites again. We're doing the Colts money line. They're playing the Bengals. I think that defense is going to be way too much for Joe Burrow to handle. Jonathan Taylor should have a big game. Colts should take this one easily. Then I got the Pats against the Broncos. Pats money line. Pats should absolutely destroy the Broncos with Cam Newton back. Pats are better in literally every form of offense and defense compared to the Broncos. I would give the Broncos the edge in tight ends, and that's about it. Maybe even D-line as well, but I think the Pats play as an absolute unit together on defense. And this is another game I could see the Pats winning by 17. I don't see the Broncos putting up any points in this game. And then the last pick in the parlay is the Ravens money line. The Ravens they're fantastic when they play bad teams. They're playing the Eagles this week. The Eagles, I wouldn't say, are a bad team, but they're not a good team. Carson Wentz isn't going to be able to save them, and we really haven't seen anything out of Lamar Jackson this year. He really hasn't unleashed. I think in a game, if they ever really need to win it, he will be able to completely take over a game. But the Eagles aren't going to slow down that offense at all and struggle against handling Baltimore's defense. That O-line is still beat up in Philadelphia. The Ravens should take this game. And then the last pick that I have a player prop. Since we're a fantasy football podcast, I figured it'd be best to get a player prop in here. So, piggybacking off the last game that I said, I have Travis Fulgham, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, over 4.5 receptions at plus 100 odds. I feel great about that pick. He had 13 targets last week. Nobody else is coming back to eat into those targets. I'm super excited about this parlay. I'm absolutely hammering the parlay and hammering this player prop, and I can't wait to make so much money this week.
All right, Tyler, thank you very much for your incredible insight there. I agree we are due. I'll echo that for you. That'll wrap up our content for this week's show. We want to thank you guys so much, as always, for tuning in. We love doing these shows and producing this content, and we look forward to doing this for a long time to come. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're new, and give us a like on the video. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram as well at Fantasy Frenzy and at Fantasy Frenzy Pod. Where I'll have all those links below. Again, on behalf of me, Rob, and Tyler, we want to thank you all so much for being here, and we will see you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Frenzy podcast. Take care of yourselves.